Boom! The sound was not from an explosion or a gunshot, but from the sharp collapse of something inside Samuel Winton's chest, a private ruin that no passerby could see. Years earlier, he had stood at the edge of someone else's grave, the grave of his younger brother, and it felt the world rearrange itself into something quieter, something emptied out, and since then the silence never left him. He woke each morning like a man stepping into winter, even when the air was warm, even when the earth remembered sunlight, because grief had its own season, and it did not thaw. Samuel carried that silence the way others carried knives. He had grown accustomed to letting things go unanswered, allowing loneliness to build furniture inside him, shaping his routines into small, unspoken rituals. He worked because work filled corners. He slept because night asked him to. His days drifted forward, not tragic, not dramatic, just steeped in absence. He had no reason to believe solitude would ever be interrupted. He assumed fate respected distance. But one late afternoon, after tracking a broken section of fence, he heard a tremoring sound, thin and ragged, like breath struggling to stay assembled. He followed it not out of curiosity, but because he could not bear the idea that anyone might feel abandoned in a world already heavy with abandonment. He found two figures collapsed beside a dry channel of earth, not moving except for faint rising of shoulders. The older of the pair, though both were young, had her arm wrapped around the other as if shielding someone from weather that had already passed. Their clothing was worn from long distance, seams frayed, fabric torn, dust layered across them. Samuel did not ask what happened. Words felt wrong. He knelt, offering water, letting them sip gently so their bodies would not reject it. The stronger sister introduced herself with only her name, Ava. She whispered the other's name with careful breath, Nilai. Injured ankles, faintness, hunger. He lifted them onto his horse, then walked beside it instead of mounting, because riding felt like selfishness. Back at his place, he laid blankets across the floor, not his bed, because the bed held memories he could not give them. Ava tried to sit upright, but her muscles trembled. Nilai clung to her sleeve, half-conscious. Samuel prepared broth that tasted like survival. They ate slowly. The evening settled not with comfort, but with a shifting of posture, as though the house itself exhaled. The sisters slept, bodies still curved toward one another, and Samuel watched them with quiet of someone remembering what human closeness once felt like. He did not understand why their presence stirred something old within him, something buried beneath layered refusal. Perhaps because they were bruised but unbroken. By morning, Ava regained steadiness. She examined her sister's ankle, pressing gently, murmuring words too soft to decipher. Nilai responded with faint gestures, almost smiles. Samuel stood near the doorway, offering presence without expectation. Ava thanked him not with speech, but with her eyes softening. No gratitude asked to be understood. It simply existed. Nilai awoke fully by midday and whispered in fragments. When Samuel asked if she needed more rest, she shook her head, not stubbornly, but as someone asserting her right to step back into life. Their silence spoke the way wind speaks through branches, never directly. At dusk something shifted. Ava approached him where he sat shaping wood, creating what might become nothing or something. She told him they had been traveling far from land that once belonged to their people. Illness had scattered families. Safety had cost more than hope. Samuel listened. Then came the moment that unstitched quiet. Hoofbeats approached. Intentional. The sisters looked toward sound without fear. Ava whispered one word, soft as memory. Mother. She did not speak the name with longing, but with confirmation, as though something inevitable had finally arrived. Samuel felt his breath slow, not from fear, but from realization that whatever past they carried was stepping toward him. The air seemed to tighten around all three of them, preparing for truth. Nothing loud, nothing violent, only an arrival that would change the shape of everything before sunrise. Boom! It was not noise but recognition, a collision between past and present as Lahanna stepped inside Samuel's home, her presence carrying unfinished stories. She looked at Ava first, then Nilai, and something inside her steadied. She did not rush to them, did not collapse into reunion. She simply placed her hand on their shoulders, and the room shifted as though memory itself found structure again. Samuel stood near the table, unsure whether to step forward or step away. Lahanna turned toward him and spoke with the weight of someone who had crossed grief without apology. She told him that he had given something rare, not safety but dignity, and she asked if he understood the responsibility that came with such a gift. Samuel did not answer immediately. Silence shaped meaning more accurately than language. He knew the gesture of tending wounds was not investment, it was witness. But the moment she called that witness forward, it felt like a vow. Ava watched them with steady restraint, her shoulder bruised but posture unbroken. Nilai leaned against the wall, ankles resting, mind clear. Their presence no longer seemed like intrusion. It had become foundation. Lahanna explained that they had been pursued, not hunted, but pressured by men who believed the sisters belonged elsewhere, men who valued negotiation more than humanity. She did not ask for protection. She asked for recognition of shared fate. She said the world breaks differently, but it breaks everyone eventually, and whoever repairs another soul becomes tied to that restoration. Samuel felt the statement settle into him like grain into soil. The next days unfolded with unfamiliar ease. Nilai began moving without pain, stretching slowly each morning, her steps measured but freer. Samuel watched her rediscover standing. Ava repaired seams on shirts she found near the stored chest. She stitched with quiet devotion, creating long patterns, not decorative but symbolic. Samuel wore one of her shirts the following day, unsure whether it was gratitude or ritual. Lahanna noticed but offered no comment. She only nodded as though acknowledging that healing often marks itself. Evenings thickened with gentle conversation. Nilai asked Samuel about his brother, not directly, but through fragments. Samuel spoke less of loss and more of absence, how emptiness behaves when given time. Ava listened while shaping strands of cloth into small braids. Lahanna sharpened a blade meant for carving wood. The house changed without rearrangement. Something softened that had once been cold. One night, Samuel stepped outside. The world breathed its night air, heavy with unspoken futures. Ava followed, but kept distance. She told him that Nilai still wakes from invisible storms, memories with no sound. Samuel said he understood, though he had never lived her story. Understanding did not require same wounds. It required stillness. The following morning, hoofbeats cut across the open land. Not the welcoming rhythm of family return, but firm insistence. Samuel walked outside before the others rose. 2 riders dismounted. They asked for Ava and Nilai. They invoked promises once made by men long gone. They called the sisters' obligation. Samuel listened, posture straight, voice calm. He said that nothing obligated is sacred. He said the women would choose where they remained. The riders insisted. Samuel stepped closer, not aggressive, only immovable. They left with dust trailing behind their horses. Nilai witnessed from the doorway. Ava sat at the table, eyes lowered not from fear but contemplation. Lahanna placed her hand on Samuel's shoulder, neither praising nor demanding, simply acknowledging the moment where protection became identity. Later that evening, Lahanna called Samuel outside. She spoke softly, telling him she would eventually leave, not out of abandonment, but rhythm. She said the world requires movement. Her daughters would stay only if the space offered safety without possession, belonging without claim. Samuel understood the difference. He had once been someone who clung tightly to avoid loss. Now he learned that closeness does not bind, it steadies. Nilai began humming near the window, a tune that belonged to no known memory. Ava rested her hand over Samuel's arm, only briefly, only once. Not declaration, recognition. Lahanna prepared to ride at first light. Before sleeping, she whispered to Samuel that life does not reward rescuers. It transforms them. He lay awake long after, letting the truth settle. Morning arrived with pale quiet. She mounted her horse. Ava and Nilai stood beside Samuel. Lahanna looked back once, then rode forward into breathless distance. The moment she disappeared, the land seemed to widen, as though expecting what they would become next.